All right, so imagine this, right? A company, and not just any company, but a publicly traded one.
Mm-hmm.
They decide to go all in on Bitcoin.
Wow.
We're not talking about just dipping their toes in the water. This is like a full-on cannonball into the deep end of Bitcoin.
Okay, so who are we talking about here?
We're talking about MicroStrategy. They're a big deal in the business intelligence world. And their CEO, Michael Saylor, he's the one who made this bold move to convert a large chunk of their cash reserves into Bitcoin.
Interesting. So they basically decided to, what, ditch traditional finance and put their faith in Bitcoin?
Kind of. And that's exactly what we're diving into today.
Yeah.
We need to figure out why they took this leap of faith, what went down afterward, and what this whole thing might mean for, well, everyone's financial future.
I'm intrigued already. So what happened? Did this risky move pay off, or did it backfire spectacularly?
Well, get this, their stock didn't just stay afloat, it actually, exploded. We're talking a tenfold increase after they went all in on Bitcoin.
Tenfold? Seriously? You're kidding me. That's, like, unheard of. Most companies are just trying to weather the storm, and these guys are over here riding a tidal wave.
Right, so obviously there's a bigger story here,
Mhm.
and it goes way beyond just, buying low and selling high.
Okay, so let's break this down then. What was the method behind the madness? Why would MicroStrategy, a well-established company, make such a seemingly wild move?
Right, so it all starts with their CEO, Michael Saylor. He's not your typical CEO. The guy's kind of a visionary when it comes to finance. And he saw something in Bitcoin that others didn't, or maybe they were too scared to admit they saw it.
And what was that?
Well, he saw it as a hedge against inflation. Like, you know how everything seems to be getting more expensive?
Yeah, tell me about it. My grocery bill gives me a heart attack every week.
Exactly. So Saylor saw Bitcoin as a way to protect his company's money from, constantly losing value.
Okay, that makes sense. But it's still a pretty big gamble, right?
Oh, for sure. But it's not just about playing defense for Saylor. He also sees Bitcoin as this incredible growth opportunity. Like, imagine a seed that has the potential to grow into a giant redwood tree.
So he's saying Bitcoin is like investing in the early days of the internet.
Exactly. And just like those early internet companies, there's a lot of risk involved, but also a huge EQ potential upside. And he decided to be a pioneer, just like those early adopters who jumped on the internet wave before everyone else.
And being a first mover has its advantages.
Right. They got a ton of attention, attracted a new breed of investors,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of set themselves up as, the cool kids on the block.
Right, because who wants to be the last one to the party? So are we talking about a new trend? Are other companies following MicroStrategy's lead?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Companies like Similar Scientific
Okay.
and MetaPlanet saw the success that MicroStrategy was having, and they're now exploring their own Bitcoin strategies.
Interesting. So it's not just a one-off thing. This could be the start of a major shift in corporate finance.
Yeah, and that leads us to the really interesting question. Is this just a fad, like bell-bottoms or beanie babies?
Right.
Or are we witnessing a fundamental shift in how corporations think about managing their money?
It's a fascinating question for sure. What we're seeing is a potential shift in mindset, especially among companies with, those visionary leaders who are bold enough to break the mold in strong cash flows.
So not your average company then?
Exactly. These are the companies that aren't afraid to color outside the lines a little bit. They're not as worried about what traditional investors might think, and they're willing to explore unconventional strategies if it means potentially reaping big rewards.
Right. It makes you wonder, what if the really big players, the Apples, the Googles, the Amazons of the world, with their billions and billions in cash reserves,
Right.
what if they decided to follow suit? What would that do to, the whole financial landscape?
Oh man, that would be
Wa-
wild. We'd be talking about a seismic shift. Just imagine even a small percentage of those reserves flowing into Bitcoin.
Right.
The ripple effects would be huge. And, we're already seeing signs of this happening, like with large institutional investors, like pension funds, which manage, retirement savings for millions of people.
Yeah.
And also things like exchange-traded funds, NTFs. They're
Right.
kind of like these baskets of assets that you can invest in.
Right.
Even they're starting to dip their toes into the Bitcoin pool.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's not just, tech companies anymore. It's becoming a much broader trend, which suggests a potential change in how the world views money itself.
It's almost like we're seeing history repeat itself, right? Like with the early days of the internet, what started as this niche technology is now completely ingrained in our lives. We
Yeah.
can't imagine life without it.
Totally. And who knows, maybe Bitcoin will follow the same trajectory. But I think the important thing for listeners to take away from all of this is
What's that?
to be financially aware and proactive. You might not be running a Fortune 500 company, but the same principles still apply. How is inflation affecting your savings?
Yeah.
Are you happy with the traditional ways of managing your money? Even if Bitcoin isn't your thing, this whole shift should at least get people thinking about different ways to protect and grow their wealth.
So in a nutshell, it's all about taking control of your financial future.
Right. Exactly. Don't be afraid to explore different options, educate yourself, and make informed decisions that align with your goals.
Love it. And that brings us to our final thought for today. What if this trend continues? Could we potentially see a future where holding Bitcoin is just as normal as holding stocks or bonds for companies?
Yeah.
Maybe even for us regular folks. That's something to ponder. Let us know what you think, and as always, keep the deep dive going.